My earliest memory is, I guess I was about 3 years old, and I wanted to see my great-grandmother, who I simply adored. And I was running away from home to go where she worked. She worked with the family that she came here to Ann Arbor with. He was the judge. I was walking up the street, and one of the neighbors tried to talk me into going back home, but I wouldn't say anything. I just kept walking. So she told my mother, and Mother came and got me, and I always remembered that. Every time I'd pass her house,
But, geez, my earliest memory was being a youngster in the Dunbar Community Center Story Hour. Age about 3 or 4.
Could you tell us about Story Hour?
Oh, yes. There was a woman, gray-haired, charming white lady, elderly, who volunteered her services to come to the Dunbar Community Center and entertain the youngsters of elementary, almost kindergarten age, with stories that she told, maybe fictitious, maybe stories that she reconstructed from her reading, I don't know, but they were absolutely enchanting. And she kept us youngsters, busy little ants as we were, still quiet and enchanted for about 45 minutes once a week.
Wow.
And I remember growing up fishing, you know, with just a piece of willow and a piece of catgut, a single hook and a stick bobber, and catching bluegills and bullheads and rock bass as a child. So I have a lot of early memories of going down catching crabs and seining minnows as a youngster. Those were really instrumental things, and learned how to ice skate. And I learned how to swim in the river at 4 years old.
we was one of the 5 families in that small town, Surrepty, Louisiana, that had their own farm. And we had, as I said, my dad had families on the place. And I played with the children.
Anyway, when we moved from 5th Avenue to Summit Street, the neighbors just died. Blacks had moved in. Well, it was interesting because a woman named Alice Ward Lee, she lived there long before we ever thought about moving to Ann Arbor, probably, because she was an elderly woman. She wore high-top boots that laced up, and she wore black jackets and black clothes, and this had all this little ruching around her. I mean, I'm almost dressed like her. But anyway, so, but when we moved, the neighborhood was so upset. Not everybody, but most of the people that were very vocal people were very upset. But we just moved in, and there we stayed.
I went to kindergarten at the one-room school that used to be in that ward. And when Jones School was finished, then I went there to the 1st grade. They showed us the kindergarten room that they had there, which was really nice. You would go in the front door off of Division, turn to your left, and it was right there. And they had their own room, their own cloakroom, their own bathroom, everything. And we'd missed that out. But I was in the 1st grade.
Played junior high school football, some high school football, wrestled in high school, loved swimming, and I swam through school, and I swam as a youngster when it wasn't fashionable for African Americans to swim for the YMCA, which is the old Y that's across from the county building on 4th Avenue. I swam in competition with several other kids from the Dunbar Center.
How many African Americans were in your high school, do you think?
I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I think I could count them up, but
Was it well integrated or was?
I mean, there weren't that many African Americans in Ann Arbor
Okay.
in 1941.
Okay.
The war brought people in. And many of the people that are as old as I am in my church now, they came here doing in the 40s, you see. And that's when the big expanse came. And that's when it really got tough to move into neighborhoods.
Were any of the teachers African American during your time of going to school?
No, no. If my memory serves me right, Mr. Harry Miles was the first, I believe, the first African American teacher in the Ann Arbor public school system, as well as my brother was the first fireman in Ann Arbor, in the city of Ann Arbor. My brother Don, my older brother, he will be 80 in June.
But I became keenly aware as a student in grade school that much of what was going on in Ann Arbor that was positive and complimentary to its citizens was not a part of our experience as African Americans. We went to the university primarily as youngsters, ragtag youngsters, in the Boy Scouts to usher for the football games. And in so doing, I became a fan, a lifelong fan of the University of Michigan football team and its other activities. But after we grew out of the age of being in the Boy Scouts, we continued to attend the football games by way of jumping the fence and defying those on the other side of the fence from catching us. Sometimes they succeeded in catching one or two of us, but we worked out a strategy. We'd line up about 12 of us, spaced generously along Stadium Boulevard, and we'd hit the fence at the same time, knowing that they couldn't
They
catch
can't
us.
catch us all.
That's right. And I tore lots of pants on the barbed wire fence.
I was a track runner.
You were a track runner.
I always got the blue ribbon.
What event did you run?
I ran as a dash woman, and then I was anchorman on the relay. And I played basketball. I played volleyball. And I learned to bat a ball in baseball. The boys' gym teacher knew me from out at the University of Michigan. He taught me how to bat a ball.
Sounds like you were quite an athlete.
Oh, well, everybody said, do you know Lydia Crum? She could outrun every boy in Jones School.
Went from there to dishwasher at Camp Burkert, which was Y camp, and went to the camp for one session and worked there 2 sessions. And so very instrumental going back there. But there again, we knew, we were in an integrated camp, but we knew segregation was there. But when you get kids together going to camp like that, it's usually a pretty fun time.
I sold newspapers at the corner of Huron and Main Streets. There on that corner sits a bank now. At that time it was the Ann Arbor Bank, it is now the PNC Bank.
Yeah.
And I sold newspapers on that corner. That was a choice corner during the war because the traffic, such as it was predominantly there on that corner. And I quickly adopted to the habit of newsboys in those days of picking out a headline that could be yelled in order to attract persons to come and purchase the paper for 3 cents.
You know, back in those days, Ann Arbor High was really a training ground for the University of Michigan. Many people that finished Ann Arbor High, they were more than ready for U of M. As a matter of fact, my transcript, my mother and I had such an argument about it, and I sent it over to Eastern. And, because I was gonna go to Eastern, because I wasn't gonna agree with her.
What was the nature of the argument?
I don't even remember. Wasn't worth it remembering.
But you got into an argument, and so you decided.
And I had a friend of hers, and the friend's daughter ran the elevator at the First National Building. And so I asked the girl, the young woman, about her job. She happened to be off that day. You know, this is the thing, does it just work out for you? And so she told me where to go to apply and all of that. And she even took my name in. And Wilson White was the man who was doing the hiring, and I got hired to run the elevator. And I announced to my mother, I'm not going to school, I'm going to run the elevator.
What was her reaction to that?
You won't quit. It wasn't very pleasant. She was very upset with me, needless to say.
And in the service in 1949, early 1949, right after a very important event in high school, which was my being featured as one of the lead roles in a Gilbert and Sullivan musical. I was the sergeant of the police, and it was a very proud moment for me, for my family, and a sort of a coming out party for me, because I came out of my shell of insecurity and felt that, golly, I have some talents that give me a certain entree into areas of life that I never even knew existed previous to that.
We went together about 2 years, more or less. And then we got married. And then I traveled on the pipeline. That's how I got up here. You know, anybody that wants somebody to work, I would like to work, you know. My husband be gone all day on the pipeline, and I'd like to work. And she said, oh yeah, she said, later that next door where I'm working is to have a baby. She wants somebody. And so she told her about it. She asked her to bring me over. And so I went over and I started to work for her. And we got to talking. And so, and I told her about how I cooked. And she said, oh, she said, well, we can get something going here, you know. And so she was the one that started me out really catering up here. And well, they called it catering, but they called it cooking back then.
Okay.
And people then was having parties and dinners mostly in their homes. And she started having big dinners at her house. Then one she'd invite over started asking me over
To cook in there.
to do their parties.
Okay.
So that's how I got started out. The parties got too large for me to work in one place. So she was willing to give me up to get started on the others.
Something big.
Bigger.
And what kinds of things did you cook?
Oh my. A little of everything.
And I've done a lot of Southern cooking. Some of them wasn't used to that. But the lady what I had started to work for was a Southern lady. She was from Birmingham, Alabama. And she was used to the Southern cooking
Style.
And boy, the other people thought that was great.
And I was the first African-American woman to work in the city hall in a non-custodial position. After I left the city hall, then I worked at, very briefly, I went to the hospital to work because I couldn't find a job otherwise. And when I looked for a job as a person working on the desk at the hospital, they couldn't possibly hire me, So it was very interesting. Then later, when I was working at Bob Marshall's bookshop, one of the women that would not hire me at the university, the hospital, I would take great joy in waiting on her at the bookstore. I'd look up and see her and I'd leave my desk and go wait on her.
I only had one incident that I really was upset about. My husband, as I said, worked at Ford's, but then he had a part-time job working for the man that had the contract for the city trash business. Well, then the city workers all unionized, paid union dues, and they were having this picnic for all the members. Mm-hmm. So bring your children and come and have a nice time all together. So there was another couple that went with us, and we had our children in the car, and we went out to, and it was at the German Park. Well, I knew I had heard rumors about it. I hadn't bothered about going up there, didn't need to. So when we got there, the guy came up to the gate and says, "Oh, well, you can't come in here." I said, "What do you mean we can't come in here?" He said, "Well, you people aren't allowed in here." I said, "But this is the picnic place, isn't it?" They said, "Yeah, they're in there having fun.
But you
can't come in." And I kept quiet as long as I could, because I'd never had this happen to me. Mm-hmm. I said, "Who's the chairman of this?" He said, "You call him over there." He said, "Oh, I'm sorry this happened, but there's nothing we can do about it. You can't come in here." I said, "I tell you what, we'll give you the sandwiches and the pop, and you can have your picnic at home." I said, "Oh," and the couple that were with us, they were from the South. "Oh, that's a good idea. I said, if you take that, you can walk home." And I told him that, I said, "Don't you ever offer me anything like that again."
Good for you.
You keep your pop and we're going home. Mm-hmm. So we went home, and close to home I got the matter I got. I'd never had anything like that happen. So I sat down and I wrote a letter to the editor. I'd never done anything like that before. And boy, it came out in the paper the next day in the Ann Arbor News. And our phone was ringing off the hook. And quite a few lawyers called, said, "Do you want to sue them?" I said, "No, I just want people to know what was going on."
40 plus years that I've been here, of her sort of like service and outreach to the sort of like the African American community through opening her house on Sunday dinners and her cash, her homes to people, university students, newcomers to the area and so forth like that. And she's done that without any complaints or reward, but she's been steadfast with that. You have, people who have, retired from professionals and so forth like that. I would think that anybody who has been around in Ann Arbor would attest to that part of it. She's modest in that she won't talk about that, but everybody else in Ann Arbor talks about that. Everybody else who's a U of M alumni talks about that. It's been around.
Yeah, well, I have had students every Sunday.
Students from the universities?
Yeah, wherever. You know, and some that wasn't students.
Who just like good
friends.
food.
Yeah, they friends. Come, I cook Sunday dinners.
Do you still do the Sunday dinners?
No, no. You'd be welcome. No, I don't.
Darn.
I know, just got us all hungry.
No, I don't do that now. No, I only cook for myself now.
Lot that she has done. She didn't talk about the time she drove trucks. She used to drive a truck for Nielsen Flowers. Democratic chairman. Democratic chairman. Democratic Party here in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, I was the Democratic city chair. Did I mention that? Yeah.
She was and has been an activist for civil rights here in Ann Arbor, in protests at the City Hall.
He reversed by dragging him around.
Certainly.
You don't have to be a heavyweight fighter, but you got to be a heavyweight in your own weight class. Now, there are big people like Waste Management, back then Browning Ferris Industries, and all these big, I never worried about those people because I knew I could give a better service than them, because when the people rang my phone and they needed to talk to the owner, they talked to the owner. They would always get a call back.
Being able to be used. I had, in my early childhood, been so dependent upon the generosity of others, both from a material sense and from the element of their encouragement to me. And it combined with the teaching of my childhood minister, who gave me the understanding that to whom much is given as a gift, much is also expected. I came to appreciate the fact that the gift that I'd been given in music was rather large and impressive. And I have difficulty saying that because I'd also been taught to be not too large-headed, but as I look back on it now, to be perfectly honest, mine was a significant gift. So I then understood that I needed to give back. And I've been motivated by that sensitivity and that requirement all my adult life.
Here, it's so wonderful, the different changes I've seen here. It isn't the little village anymore. And I think I'd need a map to get through Ann Arbor. I used to know the map, Ann Arbor like the palm of my hand. But it's so different. I have to read the street signs to know where I am now. But I'm glad I'm here to see it.